Solutions Show. I'm your host, Peter Alexander. We're joined here with Austin. What's your last name?
Douglas.
Douglas. Austin Douglas from Ditch the Itch. So anyway, Douglas, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us exactly what your business is all about? And
Sure. I'm a niche pest control business, and I deal with noxious plants and mosquitoes. And I also deal with invasive species as well.
Okay.
But primarily I do mosquito treatments for clients in the summer, and then I also deal with poison ivy, poison sumac, things like that.
Okay, cool. Anything about your personal life you'd like to share? Any kids? I think you had a son last year, didn't you?
This year. Yeah.
This year.
Yeah.
All right. Well, congratulations.
Thank you, Peter. I appreciate that. We had our son January 14th, and he's a bundle of joy.
Good.
Yeah, it was hard to come here to leave him, but
yeah.
No, awesome wife. We've been married for quite a few years. Other than that, no, I just enjoy being with my family, working. Go to Mexico in the winters because my wife's Mexican. We go see her family. Kind of works out.
Somewhere warm. Good.
Yeah, exactly.
So you don't do any plowing or anything during the winter?
No, I'm trying to be on a beach somewhere.
I have seen you in the greenhouses occasionally.
Yeah.
Do you work at a greenhouse?
I do. I work at one of the larger commercial greenhouse and nurseries in Michigan.
Okay, cool.
Over there, I deal with the trees and shrubs. Right now, we're actually in the middle of potting all of our trees. We just finished our fruit trees. We just potted all our roses. Right now, we're in the middle of pruning all of our over 20 shade trees like maples, oaks, Kwanzaa cherries, locust trees, and then we're going to move into the more garden bed ornamental trees like red buds and crab apples and things like that.
Cool. Are those trees, are they bare root? Are they container grown, burlap?
They're bare root when we receive them, and then when we pot them, we throw them in containers.
Okay.
So then they're container grown.
Yeah.
They do get ball and burlap there, but that's pretty rare.
Yeah.
It's more of a cash and carry.
I prefer the container grown. I just find it, like the transplants, better. There's less stress on the plant.
Bare root, bare root has a purpose, and it's for major developments.
Yeah.
Right? When you have to set it and forget it and move on because there's so much to do.
Yeah.
Whereas for a landscaper, you'd want to more or less go with container.
Yeah. And like even over balled and burlapped, we did a little, I guess, science experiment a couple years ago. Not on purpose. There was a bunch of green giant arborvitaes we planted, I think like 6 or 7 or whatever. We planted 4 of them were balled and burlapped, and then we went back to the nursery and they said, well, we only have container grown now. And the container grown were a little bit shorter than the balled and burlapped. And I remember learning in school that if you plant a balled and burlap next to a container grown, you'll see the container grown take off a lot faster and start growing a lot faster. There's a lot less stress on the plant. So we decided to purchase the container grown, and what we did was we just planted the shorter ones on the ends of the row. And last week I went and took a look at them, and they're the exact same height and shape right now. So I'm hoping they'll continue that way, and the ones on the ends won't surpass the ball and burlap.
The ball and burlap are going to have a harder time to grow because the roots have to penetrate through that clay. Yeah. Right? So the container grown ones, they're going to go right into the soil that you poured in, and then the roots are going to go into whatever soil around. Yeah. So that'll be interesting. You can how that goes.
I love doing like little science experiments here and there on as long as it doesn't like do anything bad or there's no potential for anything bad. It's fun to do those little things. What do you tell people when they have to when they want to know how to ID a like poison ivy?
Okay, so poison ivy is a plant that is asymmetrical. Okay, you would know this because you just got your CGIP certification. Most plants in the plant kingdom are symmetrical, right? Meaning that you could draw a line down the leaf and their veins or their shape or their notches will line up just perfect going down the leaf. Yeah. Or close to perfect, as close as God could ever create them. Yeah. And poison ivy is asymmetrical in a sense that it could be a small notch on one side, on the inner part of the leaf or lobe, and then on the other side, it could have multiple notches that are very erratic in different sizes. And how there's 3 leaves, right? You have a center one and then 2 on the sides. Those 2 ones on the sides, they can actually be completely different in look. Okay. So For the trained eye, you're looking for asymmetrical.
Okay.
You're also looking for 3 leaves only. Okay, I might have seen one plant that had 5 leaves, but out of the thousands of poison ivy leaves I've seen, that was not normal.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of times I'll have a client confuse poison ivy with Virginia creeper.
Yes, that's very common.
Yeah, I get that one a lot, and I'm like, well, there's 5 leaves.
There's 5 leaves, it's symmetrical, and they are serrated.
Yeah,
so
they have a specific berry to them as well.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
And it's bluish purple.
Yeah.
Also, if you go down like Virginia creeper vines that are climbing up trees, the hairs on a Virginia creeper vine are different than poison ivy.
Okay.
So poison ivy will have really thin hairs. They're actually called aerial roots. Same thing with the Virginia creeper, they have aerial roots. And Virginia creeper, I would say that they're at least 1 millimeter or more in thickness, whereas poison ivy is super thin, it's like horsehair. It's thicker than human hair. It's very comparable to horsehair.
Okay.
Okay. So that's what you want to look at when you're looking at vines growing up a tree. And you can walk up to it and say, okay, are these hairs that are holding it on, are they big or are they really, really fine? And that's a dead giveaway right there.
Okay.
Immediately.
Well, cool. One thing that like I was told, and I don't know if it's very true, so like where the 3 leaves meet in the center, sometimes on a poison ivy plant you'll have like that little red notch in the middle. Is that common for all poison ivy plants or just...
No. I would say that's not common. Every poison ivy plant will have, its center leaf will have its own separate stem. Okay, and then all the leaves will connect, but it'll have this little stem that separates it out. As far as a red notch, no. Poison ivy will be red in the early spring when the leaves first emerge.
Okay.
Okay, and that's because the leaves are coming out, they're adjusting to temperatures and sunlight, so it's using nutrients in a different way to where it's almost like it's autumning. But it's not. It's just coming into a full vigorous growth state.
Yeah.
And then same thing in the fall. It'll start to change how it's using nutrients, the light changes, and then it'll start to go back to that red coloring. But from the time, call it, end of May to middle of August, you're going to see poison ivy be lush green. Okay. There's only certain windows where you might see it be a different color.
Gotcha. Sometimes I've noticed in the fall, like, and this isn't true for all poison ivy, but like sometimes like they'll start to get like those like lumps on the foliage. Like,
so what that is actually a type of leaf miner or a mite. That is an insect that's affecting that. Okay. It's like an insect is going into the leaf and creating a gall. And so when you see that, you know that there's an insect infestation around there. I don't know exactly what it is. I wish I could find out.
Yeah.
But it's very difficult if you want to pick off a leaf and send it to a lab and say, hey, by the way, this is poison ivy. What's this insect? And they're going to be a little hesitant to look at it.
Yeah. We already talked about poison ivy. Would you like to talk about poison sumac a little? Because that's like poison sumac and poison oak. Those are things that aren't commonly talked about. Everyone talks about poison ivy, but not a lot of people talk about sumac or oak. Would you like to get into that?
Yeah, sure. Well, that is because poison sumac is way less common to run into. Okay, so you got to think poison ivy, its natural habitats, the woodlands, wood lines, landscape beds. Poison sumac has a very niche down area where it likes to grow. It likes to grow in a wetland bog, and actually it's an indicator plant that you're in a very highly diverse wetland.
Okay.
So really, when you're looking for poison sumac, as far as like the average person that might run into it, they own or their land sits on a wetland.
Okay.
And that's, if you go walk in state land and you walk in wetlands, you can find it pretty easily. You just got to walk back into where the swamp is, and now you know you're in the area. There's other indicator plants to show that you're in that area. You'll see cattails, you'll see skunk cabbage, you'll see dogwoods, certain types of willows will grow there. Once you're around that, you're in the realm, you're in the area. And it's a unique tree in a sense that, I guess sumacs are in general, because sumacs, they'll grow up with one trunk and then they'll branch out. It'll just be like a V, and then that V will create another V and another V, and it's almost like a Michigan palm tree.
Yeah, I was actually showing my wife yesterday. We're driving to Plymouth, and we pass by, you find Staghorn
Yep.
Sumac just all over the side of the road, and I'm like, you see that tree that's flipping us off over there? That's a Staghorn Sumac.
Yeah, and that's really like the Michigan palm tree, right?
It is.
Because they're everywhere and they grow up and they just have their canopy way up high.
Yeah, they're an interesting plant.
But sumac, okay, it's super unique in a sense that, for me, for somebody who's in tune with seeing nature and plants, and you have an eye for certain deficiencies or greens or anything like that, it has a very unique green to it.
Okay.
Okay, I'll have to show you in the summer when they're growing,
Mm-hmm.
and once you see it, you'll always see it because there's a super unique shade of green. It's almost like a neon color.
Okay.
It stands out. It's
interesting.
fascinating. But then it also has its trunk, its bark will look like elephant skin. It's like this light gray with splotches of a dark gray. If it's been wounded, it'll actually emit urushiol oil, the black oil.
Okay.
And then that'll ooze out and you'll see these black little streaks and splotches down it. It'll also have flowers on it, and the flowers will actually be below the canopy.
Okay.
Okay. And then the white berries, which are the seeds of it, once the flowers are pollinated,
Mm-hmm.
those will also be under the canopy. And they come in pretty sizable clusters.
Okay.
Okay. And typically, if there's one poison sumac, there's more.
All right.
Because the environment's correct, that tree is probably reproduced, and so there's probably seeds everywhere.
Okay.
They're really hard to tell when they're babies. You can walk right up against them and not know them.
Yeah.
And the thing that's really unique in comparison to poison ivy or poison sumac is the sense it's oil, urushiol, which is what gives us our rashes from these toxic plants.
Mm-hmm.
Poison sumac oil, for whatever reason, will penetrate clothing.
Oh no.
And poison ivy has a harder time to do it.
Yeah.
It's insane. Basically, if you walk up, brush up against it, throw away those pants, shirts, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like are the younger ones that typically like will brush up against your ankles, are those poisonous at that point?
Yes.
Okay, so you could easily walk through the woods and have one brush against your ankle and.
Yeah. Again, you got to be in a wetland.
Yeah.
So hopefully you at least have pants and boots on.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
But that's totally possible. The more common call that I get for poison sumac is when a development was built on the edge of a wetland,
Mm-hmm.
and so they used a bunch of fill dirt to get to this house foundation built, right? And then all this fill dirt goes down to this wetland. Now you're mowing along a line, and then there's poison sumac right there because
Yeah.
literally a foot difference, and it's the natural wetland that's there.
Yeah. I know, like, when I have employees weed whacking and stuff, they're occasionally, I don't know what they're hitting. Could be sumac, could be ivy.
It's probably
But,
ivy.
Yeah, they'll hit it. And
Ivy's the more common.
I've started to tell my employees don't weed whack up against wood line. I'll just try to get my mower as close as possible, just because.
Yeah,
That's
and even
typically-
then, for a guy that's mowing, okay, so say you are mowing that close and there is poison ivy there. That poison ivy that's on that wood line, you might be mowing the grass, right? But that poison ivy plant, if it's right here, its root system will go out into the lawn,
Mhm.
and it will try and shoot up little plants along its vine,
Oh, okay.
okay? So eventually, you better watch out because you could be mowing nothing but poison ivy,
Yeah.
which then will be on your blades, which then could be on your belts, and that could affect you,
Yeah.
you know?
It's just everywhere.
It's just everywhere, man.
You can't escape it. Anyway, so we talked about poison ivy, poison sumac. What about poison oak?
Poison oak is a plant that only grows to the west of the Mississippi. Okay, so we will not find that
Okay.
here in Michigan or the East Coast.
Okay.
And it's very different in a sense that it grows more like a shrub. Okay, it'll grow similar to poison ivy in a sense that you'll see these small ones everywhere.
Mhm.
But I've seen poison sumac grow to be 6-12 foot tall shrubs where you're walking through the woods and you look up and go, oh my God, what is this?
Have you ever like seen one like while traveling out west?
I have. I've seen them out in California.
Okay, cool.
The Sierra Nevada foothills, there's quite a bit of it. And then actually, I'll have to send you this picture so you can include this in it.
Yeah.
But I saw, I don't know if it was West Coast poison ivy or West Coast poison oak, but I've seen a poison ivy vine grow up an old ancient redwood,
Oh wow.
and it had to be 7 stories tall. This
Oh,
thing was
wow.
gigantic. Pictures don't do it justice, right? You
Yeah.
stand next to it, but it felt
Yeah.
like I was looking at a skyscraper of poison ivy on this redwood. So they do exist. They are out there. They're hardier. Their stems are thicker. Their leaves are smaller. But that's also because of the environment.
Yeah.
Right? Over here in Michigan, we have a really humid environment, so the leaves can get larger. It's similar to, you know, a temperate jungle type feeling, right? The leaves get huge on plants. Same thing within the jungle. There's so much humidity that they can have these giant solar panels and things to leaves to transpire water out.
Yeah.
Over there, it's dry, so the plant's adapted to transpire less. So these leaves, they might be a couple inches big.
Okay.
So it's very hard to identify, unlike poison ivy here. But they do exist. I've actually seen poison ivy even all the way down as far south as Mexico.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there was what was it? There was a nopal tree, a giant cactus.
Okay.
Okay, and there's poison ivy growing up in it.
Man, it's just everywhere.
It's everywhere. Yeah.
So like the poison oak, does it get its name by the leaf being kind of oak-like?
It's similar in its lobes.
Okay.
Over there, I think their oak trees on the west coast, California, Oregon, I think they have pin oaks that have smaller leaves.
Okay.
Probably something similar to what we would see in like a column or oak.
All right.
Okay, that we plant over here in the landscape. But yeah, they are smaller. And other than that, I don't know. I don't have too much experience with poison oak.
Yeah. The last plant I want to talk about, unless you have any others that you would like to talk about, is the giant hogweed.
The unicorn.
The unicorn of the landscape.
Yes. So giant hogweed absolutely fits the name of the unicorn, because you will be hard pressed to ever find it. I know that they have one in, what is it? They have a garden over in England that's like the garden of death or poison or something. They have all these poisonous plants over in this garden in England, and they have a giant hogweed there that's blocked off so that way people can see it. But giant hogweed is common here in the Upper Peninsula, in Canada, things like that. And it's what it does is really special because it's different than poison ivy. Okay, poison ivy, you get the oil on your skin and you'll get a rash probably 3 days later, and it can last anywhere from 2 weeks to, you know, a month depending on your exposure. Okay, and it's a dermatitis.
Yeah.
Giant hogweed, when you get the oil on you and it's exposed to sunlight, you will always break out. They don't know if it goes away or if it just stays with you forever.
I remember learning about that. It's called phytotoxicity or something like that.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I think it's photodermatitis.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't remember.
Right. Phytotoxicity is when you apply herbicides or insecticides and you end up poisoning a plant.
Okay.
Right. But photosynthesis, right?
Yeah.
Sunlight. So anytime you get the sap on you and the light hits it, you're gonna break out and blister out. It's got to be one of the worst things in the world. And it came here because somebody thought it was beautiful. Go figure.
Most of the invasive species come over here.
Yeah, absolutely. Good thing that this thing hasn't taken over like poison ivy over here.
Yeah.
Because if it did, we'd be in a world of hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't walk outside in the woods or anything.
Oh God, no.
Yeah.
You hazmat suit every day just to go to work.
Yeah,
but,
exactly. They get tall too, don't they?
Yeah, they do. They're probably, if you see them, you know it, because you've probably never seen a plant like it.
Yeah.
Ever in your life.
They kind of look like a Queen Anne's lace on steroids.
Yes.
Yeah.
A Queen Anne's lace that juiced up for like the last 3 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, this thing's huge. I think it's like 15 feet tall, something like that. Which if you saw a Queen Anne's lace that's 15 feet tall with leaves that are like 3 foot wide,
you know something.
You're gonna be like, what is this?
Yeah.
Because this giant hogweed looks super tropical. It does not look like it belongs here at all.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
Again, I've never seen one up close, but I've studied it, and I would love to see one up close. So if you have one,
not too close.
If you have one, look me up, and I want to come see it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
But it's one of those things that's very rare, but if you have it, do not go near it. And they produce thousands of seeds once you have one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, what do you do if you find one?
I believe the state of Michigan recommends that you call MSU.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
And they will send somebody out to take care of it. I personally wouldn't mind taking care of it. I would definitely try and do my best.
You might even do it for free.
If I got a good video, yeah, maybe. But that's what the state recommends.
Yeah.
But again, talking on that, if you actually go look up, I think there was like a Fox 2 or some sort of interview of them taking down one.
Oh, really?
If you look at how they handled it, it was kind of poor. They were just like hacking this thing down like it was nothing. It was laying in the grass, which now all that sap's in that grass.
Yeah.
Right? So when you look at that, it's like somebody that doesn't have experience dealing with it. I don't know. It's tough. It's tough to say, but they are the experts.
Yeah.
So
piggybacking off of like how to handle giant hogweed, when you have to deal with poison ivy or poison sumac or whatever out in the landscape, how do you go about disposing of that?
So typically what I do is an herbicide treatment. Okay. And for the most part, that covers what people need. If you wanted to talk about a physical removal, that's when you would go out and get some really thick disposable gloves. You can find these on like Gempler's or Granger or places like that. Uline, I think even sells them. The thicker the better. I wouldn't go with the 15 mil or 30 mil chemical gloves. I think that's a little excessive. If you get a couple pairs of, I think these are 8 mil. If you get a couple pairs of those on, and then I think they sell sleeve gloves. They come up here, they're pretty cheap, they're clear.
Yeah.
But that way it protects your whole arm, and then that protects your hands. So that way when you go to remove it, you got 3 layers of protection. So then you remove it out of the ground, be very careful to get all the roots. Then you would just put it into a contractor bag, and then it goes to the landfill. Now what I do is I have a dump trailer that I use for my dumpster. I throw it in my dump trailer until it's full, and then I take it all to the dump, so that way I'm the last guy to handle it. Yeah. The next guy that handles it, he's using a bulldozer. Yeah. So after me, that's hopefully the last guy in line.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Awesome. I remember one time I was removing poison ivy, and it wasn't a whole lot. It was just like in this corner garden bed. I took the gloves and put the gloves on. I had like a sweatshirt on, and so I wrapped the gloves over the sleeve.
Yep.
And then I went to go reach to grab one, and as I was reaching, the sleeve slipped down, and I just watched the leaf touch my arm, like, oh, that's gonna hurt in the morning, and tried washing it off and stuff. But by the time I got access to water, it was too late, and the next day it just broke out my wrist.
So that is the most common way that I get poison ivy, which I do get poison ivy. And anybody that's watching this, you should think that you are not immune. Okay, you just haven't reached your threshold yet to where you break out. But the most common spot that I get is right on my wrist. Same thing that happened to you.
Yeah. Okay,
sleeve slides up or glove rips, touches you there, you don't even realize it because you're thrashing, pulling the stuff out. A few days later, you got it.
Yeah.
So you noticed it, and you have 20 to 30 minutes to wash it off.
Yeah, I didn't do it, and it was like an hour later.
Yep, so that's enough time for the oil to set in, and then at that point, your check's cashed. You're gonna get it.
Yeah.
I always recommend the landscapers to keep a gallon of potable water in their trucks, Dawn dish soap, and a rag. Okay, all those 3 things are essential. Okay, because if you know that you touched it, okay, you got 20 minutes. So you can keep going, but you better, you're on the clock at that point to wash it off. But you use the water. Hopefully it's cold. You don't want hot water. Cold water will close your pores, so that way the oil's not setting in. If you use hot water, which a lot of people make that mistake, especially homeowners, they go out there, they start ripping stuff out and go, oh, this is poison ivy. They run in, they take a hot shower, and now all of a sudden their whole body's covered. Okay. But for the landscaper, you would want to lather up with Dawn dish soap. And then before you wash off the soap, you want to use a rag and pull all of that Dawn dish soap off with the rag, and do that a couple times. Because otherwise, it's just like if you were to put axle grease and wash your hands. If you just use water and soap, all you're going to do is spread it around.
Yeah.
But the rag creates some friction and abrasion, and it pulls the oil off with it.
Okay.
Okay. You do that, and you are way less likely to get poison ivy.
Okay, cool.
Okay, super simple tips that will help you bar none.
So, like, if you fail to do all those things and you do end up getting poison ivy rash, how do you go about dealing with it?
Great question.
Yeah.
So, this is going to be an interesting answer, and a lot of you people probably won't believe it. But hot water, as hot as you can stand it, for as long as you can take it, is the best solution. Now, why that is, we got to think back to what's going on with your body, right? So you didn't get to your poison ivy oil in time. So your poison ivy oil is absorbed into your skin. Now what's happening is it's starting to blister out, okay? So with these blisters, what's your skin doing? Your skin is stretching, okay? And that stretching is making you want to itch. That's the irritation, is your skin stretching because your body's trying to push out this toxic substance, okay? It doesn't like it, so it's like, get out of here.
Yeah.
Hot water, what that does is that makes your skin way more malleable. Okay, so it allows it to stretch. So you don't feel it. You're gonna have the rash. That's gonna take its time and take its course. But the hot water, you won't itch. Okay, so it's funny because hot water has a purpose. It's just not initially. Okay.
Interesting.
Yes, but it works.
Yeah.
Like I said, my most common thing is I get it on my wrist. So in the morning, before I go back out on the road and start doing more jobs, I will put my wrist underneath the hottest water I can take for as long as I can take it. I try and go there for a minute, but sometimes that's hard.
Yeah.
And I will let that water beat on that rash and just hold it. And then after that, I'm good for 8, 10, 12 hours.
That's cool.
The rash is still there.
Yeah.
It still looks ugly, but you do not feel the sensation of itching. And if you do, say it doesn't last that long for you, right? If you're out at a gas station or something like that, do it again. And eventually, you'll get to the point where there's no more itching, your skin's done stretching, trying to emit the urushiol oil out of you, and now you're on the home stretch. Now you're just waiting for your blisters to heal up.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you would do besides that, or
nope,
that just works perfectly for you?
It works fantastic. I've heard some people use ice cold water, which, the theory of it, of making your skin more malleable, that's tightening your skin.
Yeah.
So it seems opposite, but some people have said that.
Okay.
A lot of old timers will say to pour gas on it. Do not do that, ever.
No.
I have used Technu. That was absolutely useless. And I have used this stuff called Zanfel, which is like this, it's almost like Gojo. It's this really gritty stuff. And I think the concept of it is to break up the blisters, so that way you just get the oil out and then, you just gotta wait to heal up. But it didn't seem to alleviate the itch. It just seemed to, like I said, just break up the blisters. So I don't recommend that either.
Gotcha.
Right, because then now you're creating open wounds, and that's not good.
There's something that I purchased a couple years ago when I got it on my wrist. It was at like Kroger or something. It was basically a paste that like went on your wrist, and what that paste did was it just dried up eventually, and it just kind of like, I don't know exactly what it was doing, but I think I still have it somewhere. I'd have to show you later. But it worked. It kept it from itching.
Did it?
It did.
Okay.
But you had like this like paste on your arm.
Right, it didn't look appealing.
No, it was a trade-off.
Yeah, no. People have said put chamomile lotion on it.
Okay.
I've never done that. I've never found that works. If you go onto a lot of like naturalist sites, they'll say that jewel weed works. I've never used that, so I can't comment on that. But a lot of people say certain things. One thing, don't use gas.
Yeah.
I ran into so many 60, 70-year-old men that say to pour gas on it, it dries it right up. Please do not do that.
I mean, they're 60 to 70, so it didn't kill them.
It didn't kill them, right, but I do not recommend that.
Oh, that's funny. So hot water, guys.
Hot water.
So the other service that you provide, Mosquito Control. How do you go about keeping mosquitoes off of property?
Great question. So mosquitoes need water. Okay, we live in Michigan. Michigan's full of lakes, full of water, full of lowlands that gather water, things like that. Mosquitoes can also travel quite a long distance. There's certain species of mosquitoes that'll actually fly like something like 800 or 900 yards.
Wow.
Yeah, from where they actually hatched, which is pretty crazy to think.
Yeah.
Like, that's a long way.
Yeah.
You use insecticides, insect growth regulators, but if we go back to the base, they need water. So if you can eliminate your pooling water around your property, you're going to reduce your mosquitoes automatically by doing that. Okay, so if you have a property that's like, you have bird baths or things like that, you want to change the water frequently, because that way any mosquito that lays eggs in there that turn into larvae, once you empty that, those things are dead. If you have ponds or koi ponds or anything like that, I would recommend using a bacteria called Bacillus thuringiensis. There's certain strains. There's some BT that works for caterpillars. There's some that work for aphids. It's a great natural substance. And there's one specific strain that works for mosquitoes. So I would say look into that.
Okay.
And that's typically a granule. I know they sell them at like your average Tractor Supply or Home Depot, and they come in these little pucks. Okay, and you can just throw those into ponds, follow the directions, of course.
Yeah.
But it's a larvicide, so it's going to kill any larva. So you can have adult mosquitoes flying, and once they go lay eggs, those eggs hatch into larvae, and then those things are going to die. So you're reducing it naturally that way. Once you get past that point and you want more control, that's when you would jump into insecticides, insect growth regulators, something that has residual effects.
Yeah.
Natural methods, if you wanted to look into that, clove oil, garlic oil. There's a lot of oils out there and products that contain oils that will repel them.
Yeah.
Not necessarily kill them, but they'll repel them. Yeah. Say you're against chemicals or your client's against chemicals, my suggestion would be to use traps. And certain mosquitoes are attracted to certain things. So some mosquitoes, some species, are attracted to CO2 and CO2 only. So that's why you're breathing out there and all of a sudden here comes all the mosquitoes to you, right? Some are attracted to light and some are attracted to both CO2 and light. And they sell certain traps that do certain things. Okay. They sell combos that have both CO2, which is typically a propane burner, and that has a fan that sucks them in and captures them. It also has a light to attract those. But yeah, you just kind of got to figure out the situation and what your client needs and what type of control they want.
There's a type of plant. I had a client who planted it. It even smelled like bug spray. I can't remember the name of it. But
citronella?
Yes, they would plant those around their porch and stuff, and they said that would get rid of most of them.
I believe that.
I've never tried it, so it smells good though. So even if it doesn't get rid of the mosquitoes, I mean, I'd love to have that on my front porch.
And that goes with all natural oils, right?
Yeah.
So if when you're using natural oils, it's more of a repellent. The mosquito's not going to be able to sniff out your CO2 or hey, look, this guy has a tasty compound in his blood that I want.
Yeah.
Right? They're going to be blown away by all these scents of these plants or these oils. So it's one of those things. It depends. It depends on what the client wants and what type of control you'd like.
Yeah, I know. Like the mosquitoes love me whenever like I'm in a crowd or something. Like they go for me. They don't go for anyone else.
Yeah, there's probably something in your blood
that they
due to your diet or whatever.
Yeah, I gotta switch my diet up. I mean, I got that winter fat. I gotta get rid of.
Yeah, when I was again, my wife's true Mexican, and so when I went down to Mexico, we went down to these Mayan pyramids. And our guide that was taking us around all these Mayan ruins, he said that, next time you guys come, eat this. And I forget what it is, but he said, eat this before you come. It's like, why is that? And he said, because it does something within your body that the mosquitoes don't like.
Okay.
So diet has a lot to do with it.
That's interesting.
It is. And it's because there's certain compounds in blood that mosquitoes like more than others. And they're trying to figure that out. What do mosquitoes want? But we're waiting to see the results.
It's the one thing on God's green earth that I just think serves no purpose except for maybe feeding bats or some birds.
Everything serves a purpose. Right?
I guess. I guess.
Right. It's the one thing that we don't like.
Yeah, exactly. So the last thing I want to do is you brought something for show and tell. So I'm actually going to go grab the camera.
Yeah.
And we'll take a look at this. All right. So what do we have here?
This is a 70-year-old poison ivy vine.
Holy
and you can
moly.
count the rings just like you would a tree, right? And all this black here is the urushiol oil that it emitted out so that way it could seal itself. It tried to seal itself.
So this is like if I were to touch that along the end, I would break out in rashes.
You could.
Okay.
So over time, what happens to this oil is it becomes non-toxic and it has to dry out. An interesting thing about the urushiol oil, the Japanese, they have a tree called the lacquer tree, and it contains the exact same oil as this. And they used to use it to seal up boats. So they would extract this oil that you see in poison ivy or poison sumac, and then lather it up on their boats and let it dry, and it would become 100% waterproof.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see like
All the oil
there.
that dripped out.
Yeah. That's very cool. You said 70 years old?
Oh yeah. If you count these rings, there's a lot of them. And some of them are blocked because of the oil.
Yeah.
But when you start counting each individual rings, this thing's been around a while.
That's very cool. How long did it take you to go through and get rid of that entire plant?
Well, with vines, what I do is I just cut out a section and I poison the stump.
Okay.
So this was the section that I cut out, and then I just added some herbicide to the stump, and it was good to go.
All right. Very cool.
All right. All right, that's all we have for you today. Thank you very much, Austin, for coming by. Don't forget to hit like and hit subscribe.
Definitely subscribe.
Do you have any like social media or anything for people to follow?
Yeah, people can find me at Ditch the Itch MI on Instagram, and hopefully when I get some internet, I'll be producing some more videos on poison ivy this year. You can look up Ditch the Itch on YouTube, and you'll find me there.
All right, perfect. Thanks for coming out.
Yeah, no problem, Peter.
All right, take care, guys.
Peace.